Okay, because I obviously talk way too much, this is part 2 of the section 3 notes. We last left with a little bit of background about Hitler as a young boy. His father really didn't want him to become an artist, but his mother allowed him to pursue that dream. Once his father dies, he goes to Austria, or he goes to the Vienna Art School. He does not get in there. He fails out. And what happens next is Hitler just kind of takes his time, hangs out in Vienna for a couple of months, actually almost a year, just doing what he wants to do, just hanging out, formulating his own ideas about the world, and kind of like that in-between high school and college phase where you kind of find out who you think you are. Well, eventually Hitler gets into politics. He starts making some big speeches in the 1920s. He eventually is going to become a very prominent member of the Nazi Party. Eventually he's going to lead the Nazi Party. He talks about all these ideas about how to make Germany better. He talks about things like the Aryan race, the German master race, that they are by far the most superior of all the world. He talks about how he can improve Germany. And again, when everything's miserable in Germany, and he's talking about ways to improve it, and no one else is, people listen. So anyhow, moving forward, Hitler has now become Fuhrer. President von Hindenburg has died. Hitler reluctantly, though not reluctantly, takes over, but instead he names himself the Führer, or the leader of Germany. He's going to institute new policies, and Hitler is going to create new public works projects to help with the high unemployment rates and to end the German Depression. And again, it works. When Hitler has the Enabling Act passed, it gives him full and complete total control. He is going to be able to dissolve portions of Parliament, and more or less, when it's only one man making the decisions, things kind of get done very quickly. And what that does is it leads to this, I guess, facade of efficiency. And the Depression is eased. The Nazis are going to use mass demonstrations and meetings like the Nuremberg party rallies to gain support and invoke excitement from the German people. All of this, both of these things, improving the Depression, but also then the Nuremberg party rallies to gain support and evoke excitement. This was all about German nationalism. And this is very important. This German nationalism is quite the big deal, because through it all, we're going to see that it starts making the German people have some pride in their country and some, I guess, pride where there was no pride before. Hitler would talk about how glorious the Nazi state was. Remember, it was an absolute totalitarian state. But the one thing that Adolf Hitler really focused on was the development and the improvement of the Aryan race, the master race, who most all of the people who were blonde-haired, blue-eyed, who were of Germanic in descent, other than the Jewish people who were living in Germany, that these Aryan people were by far the most superior of the races amongst man, and that they deserved more living space, they deserved all kinds of I guess, like regal benefits. The Aryan race, Hitler said, would dominate Europe and the world because they were the descendants of the ancient Romans, of the Holy Roman Empire, which I mentioned earlier. Actually, Hitler talks about the fact that the Germanic people have had two previous glorious empires. The first empire of the ancient Romans. The second empire was going to be the empire of, Prussia and Otto von Bismarck, and then that military German state right up to and including World War I. That beautiful, glorious state that just was the embodiment of a modern military state. Hitler says that was the second great German empire, and that Hitler would establish the Nazi Reich, the first and third, the ancient one, and then the previous to World War I one, and that Hitler would be in charge of establishing the Third Reich. The Third Reich was going to be the Nazi Reich, led by Adolf Hitler, that would rule for well over 1,000 years. And again, you're a German person hearing these things, and you start feeling pretty confident. Yeah, maybe I am part of the perfect master race. That sounds nice if you happen to be. Maybe my descendants were part of the first and third Nazi Reichs, the descendants of the ancient Romans, and the men of the first, previous to the First World War. And yeah, you know what? Maybe my country really is going to be the ruling nation of the world for the next 1,000 years. It sounds good, especially if you're on that team. Under Hitler's regime, women were going to be looked at as wives and mothers. Their job was to provide for their husbands and churn out German babies. They would bear children destined to be the success of the Aryan race. More or less, women had a role in German society, but their job was to serve their men, rear their children, and have more babies. Women were only allowed to work in gender-specific jobs, nursing, social work, but they were highly encouraged to stay at home. Again, the big reason for this, to have more babies. The Nazi Party is going to begin to expand their anti-Semitic policies and their anti-Jewish boycotts by instituting new racial laws, such as the Nuremberg Laws. What's going to happen is after Hitler has won the German people over and told them how great their blonde hair and blue eye and Germanic descent is, Hitler then starts talking about how the Jews are the ones who are ruining their Aryan chance for supremacy. And so he begins saying, hey, if you want to be part of the German master race, if you want us to conquer and rule for 1,000 years, which, by the way, the German people were very hurt after World War I and struggling greatly. So anybody who promises greatness, they're going to say, well, yeah, maybe it was the Jews that were trying to hurt us. And so maybe they should leave. What comes next are the Nuremberg Laws. These are going to be things that are going to define anyone with one Jewish grandparent as a Jew. And remember, being Jewish is not an ethnicity. It's not like Italian or German or Russian or Chinese. It is a religion. So it's not who you are or where you're from. It's what you practice. Eventually, the Nuremberg laws are going to exclude Jews from German citizenship. They are no longer allowed to be German citizens. The Jews have no civil rights. They are taken away. And eventually, at this point in time, many of the Jewish people say, something's not right. Hitler and the Nuremberg laws eventually forbade the marriages between German citizens and Jew. The idea here was that Hitler did not want pure Aryan blood being mixed with the vile, festering animal that was the Jew. And again, these are his terms, not mine. But it is absolutely terrible the way Hitler looked at these other groups of people. The Jews were not allowed to teach in schools. They were not allowed to participate in the arts. Eventually, what we're going to see is just the further and further erosion of the German treatment of the Jewish people. Now, again, some of these Jewish people very well could have Germanic ancestry. They could be German in nature, but they were practicing a religion that Hitler did not like. Eventually, the Nuremberg laws are going to require Jews to wear the yellow Star of David and carry identification cards. And if you don't know, the Star of David kind of looks a little bit like this. And so the Jewish people had to wear a patch such as this on their arm and carry a yellow identification card to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt who and what they were. Again, these are things that are trying to demean the Jewish people and, again, take away their citizenship and their civil rights. Eventually, the Jewish people are going to say and realize that this is not right and that but unfortunately, you already know it's going to be too late. Eventually, on November 9th of 1938, a more violent phase of Jewish-Nazi relationships take place in Kristallnacht. This was the night of broken glass. The Nazis are going to burn synagogues and Jewish businesses. 30,000 Jews are going to be sent to concentration camps. More or less, everything up until this point in time was poor treatment of the Jewish people. But after the night of shattered glass, things go to worse treatment of the Jewish people. And that is kind of, I guess, the Jews are going to be barred from all public transportation, public buildings. They were prohibited from owning or working in any retail stores. The Jewish people it's going to be a full-out attack on the Jews. The Schulstoff is going to encourage Jews to immigrate. And you guys remember from our OGT questions, immigrate with an E means to leave Germany. Some will, many do not. Those who stay behind are going to find a far worse fate. You guys know that. Anyhow, we're going to talk a little bit more about the after effects and the eventual Holocaust. We're going to talk a little bit more about how Adolf Hitler is going to continue to rise to power in Germany and what's going to happen. Truthfully, the guy is just going to make some crazy political moves, but they're going to work. For about a 10-year span, everything that Adolf Hitler does is going to lead to German success and German strength. They're going to get bigger, stronger, and more confident. And that is eventually going to lead to his downfall, but not until he does some serious damage to the world. So that's it for today. I'll see you in class.